now.
Drop the knife now. Drop it now. You heard that command. You felt the tension in that officer's voice. I know you felt it, because you and we've been watching the same viral clips, the same Bodycam leaks that the corporate networks scrub from their broadcasts before sunrise. What you just heard was not some random street confrontation in a town you've never visited. That audio, that frantic, repetitive, drop the knife now, drop it now, put it down.
Drop the knife now!
Is the opening page of a file that was never meant to leave the sealed evidence room. The body
Drop the knife now!
It surfaced through a whistleblower inside a Midwestern police department, a desk sergeant who had finally had enough of seeing the truth get buried under scripts written by the very people this country has been told to trust. And when that audio hit my desk, I had to sit down, because right there, buried under the chaos, was the scream that changes everything. So you all kidnapping me? Fuck you!
Put it down! Put the
I'm not
knife...
going to give you some sterile breakdown. I'm going to hand you the keys to a door the elite entertainment machine has been welding shut for 3 decades. We all knew this was coming. You know, just like I know, that when a Hollywood-formed individual is cornered, the programming activates. It's almost ritualistic at this point. And this time, it backfired so completely that the legend of this bodycam will be whispered about in precincts from Burbank to Orlando. This is about what happens when the files finally escape the vault, when justice actually stands its ground, and when a knife-wielding product of the child star pipeline discovers that the real world doesn't follow the script. The emotional wound that night wasn't just on the officer who had to hold that line. It's on every parent in that working-class neighborhood who had to hear the screams through open windows, who had to grab their kids and lock the bathroom door because the monster in their street wasn't a stranger from a back alley. He was a living, breathing export of the very entertainment system their children are spoon-fed every Saturday morning. The bodycam footage, which we have reviewed in its entirety, shows the suspect, a man named Marcus Webb, pacing in a driveway, knife glinting, while officers from 3 units form a containment perimeter. You won't hear that name on the 6 o'clock news. The media erased it. They don't want you to know that Marcus Webb was one of the highest-paid child actors on a late 90s Nickelodeon sitcom, a show that the wholesome church-going families invited into their living rooms as safe entertainment. He was the funny kid with the catchphrase. And by 14, he had been handed over to a network of handlers, agents, and creative mentors who operate what survivors have quietly called the demonic mill of the Sunset Strip. The wound is that this boy, now in his 30s, stood in the dark with a chef's knife and eyes that belonged to someone whose soul had been hollowed out long ago. The wound is that we let this happen behind studio gates, and now it's spilling into our neighborhoods. Now, a lot of people will ask why the police didn't just drop him on sight. And that's where we reframe who the hero of this exposure actually is. The mainstream, the Hollywood-funded pundit class, they've spent years vilifying the cops who hesitate, the ones who don't fire. But the officer whose voice you hear first on that tape, the one who refused to escalate, even as this erratic man lunged towards the patrol car, is a 20-year veteran named David Harris. Officer Harris was already controversial in the department's internal affairs files because he had openly questioned the way celebrity suspect cases get soft-walked by the DA. He had been labelled difficult, blackballed from the community outreach roles he used to thrive in, all because he told a closed-door hearing that there are 2 justice systems, one for regular Americans and one for the manufactured icons of the elite. That night, Harris stood his ground. He gave the command to drop the knife 14 separate times.
Drop the knife now! Drop the knife now! Drop it now!
You heard it.
Drop the knife now.
Set.
10:33.
Still.
Drop it. Get back.
58, you're not
Back up. Drop the knife now. Drop it.
He didn't scream, he didn't panic. He used the calm, authoritative cadence.
Drop the knife now!
That comes from a man who knows exactly what Webb's programming was designed to provoke. And when Webb finally shrieked that line about kidnapping, Officer Harris didn't flinch. He didn't break. He became the silenced hero that every cop in America needs right now, because he exposed the playbook in real time. And now we drop the real names and the real documented events, because you deserve the files. Marcus Webb didn't just appear in that driveway. 2 weeks prior, according to records we pulled from a private security firm that monitors celebrity movement in the Nashville and Atlanta corridors, Webb had checked out of a discreet wellness retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That retreat, Serenity Peaks, is not advertised. It's funded by a shadowy collection of former studio executives who shifted their money into rehabilitation facilities after the child actor scandals of the 2010s. The paperwork shows that Webb was discharged not because he had completed treatment, but because his insurance, a policy held in trust by a legal entity linked to a prominent talent management group in Beverly Hills, was abruptly cancelled. The group's director, Marianne Street, Claire, is a known fixer whose name appears in civil court documents involving several former child actors who later ended up arrested, institutionalized, or dead. Corey Feldman has pointed at this machine. Corey Haim's autopsy report is a sealed wound in the side of Hollywood's corpse, and yet the same hands that guided those boys were also steering Marcus Webb into a quiet suburban street carrying a blade. When Officer Harris ran the suspect's ID that night, the watch commander immediately received a call from a number that later traced back to a burner phone registered to a shell company owned by St. Clair's Legal Trust. The call lasted 3 minutes, and immediately after, the order came down: contain and de-escalate at all costs, no media flags. They wanted this buried before Webb even hit the ground. That is not speculation. That is a chain of events documented in dispatch logs that we acquired through a public records request that, miraculously, wasn't denied. And the ritualistic signature, the thing that ties all of this together, is that phrase, "You all kidnapping me." It's not random rage. Psychological operatives inside the entertainment grooming apparatus have used a technique for years called narrative inoculation. They train their assets to scream specific, legally weighted accusations the moment they're detained. Why? Because in the age of viral outrage, a well-timed kidnapping claim can trigger a media frenzy that pressures prosecutors, that activates the social justice arm of the elite's PR machine, and that ultimately gets the charges reduced or the case thrown out. We've seen it before. We saw it with a certain pop star's meltdown in Palm Beach. We saw it with a rapper in Houston. But this time, because Officer Harris is a man of faith who has stated on record that his duty is to God and his community before any department memo, the gambit did not work.
Drop it.
The bodycam was running, the audio was clear, and the moment Webb's words left his mouth, the applause you heard from the bystanders on that street was the sound of working-class Americans who instinctively recognized the demonic con for what it was.
Drop it now! Drop the knife!
And now I need you to step back and see the everything makes sense now picture. This is not an isolated mental health crisis. This is the inevitable outcome of a culture that sacrificed childhood on the altar of ratings, that shuffled vulnerable kids through ritualistic abuse masked as Hollywood parties, and then set them loose on a society that was never supposed to connect the dots. Every time a former child star brandishes a weapon, Every time they spit out the phrase, "you're kidnapping me," it is a flare sent up from a deep, dark pit that the entertainment elite have dug. The justice that arrived that night wasn't just Officer Harris putting cuffs on a deranged man. It was a symbolic stand. It was a message that the programming is breaking down, exploring the legal nuance beyond the body count.
Drop the knife.
The Bodycam leak, the whistleblower, the veteran cop who refused to be silenced. This is the beginning of the exposure of the entire pipeline, and the elites know it. Within hours, a major digital platform demonetized the original upload of this footage, labeling it disturbing content. Disturbing to whom? To the mothers in Iowa who see a child they recognize from cable reruns now holding a knife? Or to the boardroom in Century City that realized their insurance liability just became a criminal case? The files are out now, and the elite don't want you to put these pieces together. They don't want you to know that Marianne Street Clare's trust fund also made a payment to a political action committee that lobbies against bodycam transparency laws. They don't want you asking why a psychiatric hospital with direct financial ties to a major streaming service was ready to accept Marcus Webb under a pre-arranged pseudonym before Officer Harris's sergeant blocked the transport and insisted on booking him under his legal name. When a man raises a knife and screams about kidnapping, the justice system is supposed to treat him like any other threat. But if that man's name is attached to a billion-dollar library of syndicated content, suddenly the machinery of the corporate state scrambles to protect the asset. This time, the machine jammed. Harris jammed it. I'm not here to tie a neat bow on this. I'm filled with a righteous anger that should be yours too. Because while Marcus Webb sits in a court-mandated evaluation, the very people who hollowed him out are still in their positions, still managing child talent, still running the retreats, still writing checks to politicians. The blackballed officer who did everything right now faces an internal review for unnecessary verbal engagement because he dared to tell Webb, "We're not your handlers, son." That phrase, captured on the bodycam, is now being used as evidence that Harris escalated the suspect's paranoia. That is where we are. The hero is being punished for speaking truth to a manufactured soul. Meanwhile, the fixer Marianne St. Clair is scheduled to appear at a charity gala next month honouring mental health in the arts, hosted by a network that once employed Webb. The demonic inversion is complete. So I'm going to leave you with this open wound, because open wounds demand attention. The bodycam shows that when they finally got the knife away and the applause died down, Marcus Webb sat on the curb and whispered a name. It's barely audible. Our audio engineer isolated it. He said, Evan. Evan Harwood was a child actor who died in 2009 under what the coroner called undetermined circumstances at a private residence owned by the same management group. That detail didn't make the news then, and it won't make the news now unless we force it. This is the breadcrumb I'm leaving in your mind as we close. If a knife-wielding, programmed former star on the edge of death whispers the name of a long-buried victim, what else is buried in those files? And who's going to get them out? Because here's the truth. You and I already know that the FBI won't raid that management office. We already know the media will memory hole this story by morning, cycling in a new manufactured outrage to distract you. But the bodycam files are real. The dispatch logs are real. The check from the trust fund to the anti-transparency pack is real. And the legend of Officer David Harris, the man who stared into the hollow eyes of a sacrificed child star and refused to follow the script.
Drop the knife. Drop it now.
Is only beginning. The question I need you to answer, the question that will keep this exposure alive, is this. When a man programmed by the Hollywood machine screams kidnapping, and the only people who save him from himself are the very cops the elites want defunded, whose side are the protectors of the elite really on? Tell me in the comments what you would have done if you were on that containment line. Because the way I see it, every quiet comment is another brick in the wall we are building around the darkness until it can no longer breathe.